Welcome, dear listener, to Spirituality in the Brain. I am Vanessa Anceloni, your host. This segment is about bridging the latest findings of neuroscience with the teachings of Spiritism. Today we're going to talk about depression. On the week of January 2014, the Hebrew University research found out new efficient and fast-acting antidepressant drugs. The World Health Organization calls depression the leading cause of disability worldwide, causing more years of disability than cancer, HIV, and cardiovascular and respiratory diseases combined. In any given year, 5 to 7% of the world's population experiences a major depressive episode, and 1 in 6 people will at some point suffer from the disease. Despite recent progress in understanding depression, scientists still don't understand the biological mechanisms behind depression well to deliver effective prevention and therapy. One possible reason is that almost all research focuses on the brain's neurons, while the involvement of other brain cells has not been thoroughly examined. Now, researchers at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem have shown that changes in one type of non-neuron brain cells called microglia underlie the depressive symptoms brought on by exposure to chronic stress. In experiments with animals, researchers were able to demonstrate the compounds that alter the functioning of microglia can serve as novel and efficient antidepressant drugs. These findings were published in the journal Molecular Psychiatry, the premier scientific journal in psychiatry and one of the leading journals in medicine and the neurosciences. The research was conducted by Professor Raz Irmiya, director of the Hebrew University Psychoneuroimmunology Laboratory, and his doctoral student, Kreisel, together with researchers at Professor Irmiya's laboratory in the University of Colorado in Boulder, USA. The researchers observed the involvement of microglia brain cells in the development of depression following chronic exposure to stress. Comprising roughly 10% of brain cells, microglia are the representatives of the immune system in the brain. But recent studies have presented that these cells are also involved in physiological processes not directly related to infection and injury, including the response to stress. The researchers mimicked chronic unpredictable stress in humans, which is a leading cause of depression, and later they identified that microglia were decreased in the brain. So by injecting drug that would increase microglia, so a microglia stimulating drug would effectively be antidepressant. This is a new finding, and it tells us that there is much to be investigated about the brain. This report was written by neurosciencenews.com. In Spiritism, dear listener, we also talk about depression, though with a different name, because at Kardec's time, the word depression didn't exist to identify this type of mental disorder. The word used was melancholy, and this is described in chapter 5 of the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, item 25. It's interesting to note that science already tells us that if we put ourselves into chronic stress, we can push ourselves to depression. In Spiritism, we understand that this sadness that takes our hearts really is something that we should fight against. So the spirit François de Genève wrote, "Do you know why a vague sadness sometimes weighs upon your hearts and makes you find life so bitter? It is your spirit which aspires to happiness and freedom, and which, bound to the body that serves as its prison, exhausts itself in vain efforts to escape. However, seeing that such efforts are useless, it falls into despondency, and the body, bearing the spirit's influences, sluggishness, dejection, and a kind of apathy, seizes you, and you find yourself unhappy. Believe me and strongly resist these feelings that weaken your willpower. The yearnings for a better life are innate in the spirit of all humans, but do not seek them in this world. And nowadays, as God is sending His spirits to instruct you about the divine happiness reserved for you, patiently await the angel of deliverance, who will help you break the bonds that hold your spirit captive. Remember that during your trial on the earth, you have a mission that you cannot doubt, whether in dedicating yourself to your family or whether in fulfilling the various obligations that God has entrusted to you. If during the course of this trial and while performing your task, you see worries, troubles, and vexations fall upon you, be strong and courageous in order to bear them. Face them resolutely. They are of short duration and will lead you to the friends for whom you weep. They will rejoice at your arrival amongst them and will extend their arms to you to lead you to a place where the afflictions of earth have no access. Well, this is the spiritual perspective on depression. It tells us about the importance of not stressing ourselves out. If science has already come to the conclusion that chronic stress leads us to depression, we should observe how we are putting ourselves under stress so we can prevent that type of depression as well. And the spirits here, especially Francois de Genève, brings to us the understanding that we should resist these feelings. He talks about sluggishness, apathy, unhappiness. In this way, we're going to be helped by spirits. When he says God is sending his spirits to instruct you about the divine happiness reserved for you, he's talking about the guardian angels. So dear listener, we really need to focus more on our relationship with our guardian angels to really minimize these feelings that are creating depression and stress in our lives. So we would say quite clearly, while science is trying to find new tools to target a better life for all of us, we need spiritual tools as well to empower us to get out of this state of mind, which is depression. It's not easy sometimes, but it is possible. How so? By listening to what the spirits are saying. They say, believe me and strongly resist these feelings that weaken your willpower. Here they're telling us about what we should do. Resist. And resist in the sense of don't cultivate these feelings, because they are going to decrease your willpower. So focus on your willpower. Do what you can do best, and you are going to be able to be helped by these spirits and get out of depression or prevent you from actually falling into it. Well, if you have questions and comments, please write to us at cardiacradio.com. We have a contact form. We'll be happy to assist you in that regard. We wish you lots of blessings